let's talk a little final say in the draft.
Yeah.
The Giants have already announced that Jim Harbaugh, their new head coach, will have final say over the general manager for their two first-round picks. Pick 5 and pick 10
Wait,
will
say
be
that
Jim.
again?
John Harbaugh gets final say over Joe Shane, the general
Yeah.
manager, on their 2 first-round picks. In rounds 2 through 7, the GM has final say over the head coach. I'm not sure if that's only New York, but the Giants have come out and said the first 2 picks will be Harbaugh's.
Why is that public?
I'm surprised they made that public.
They made that public.
That is,
My question is,
yeah.
we don't know what the Browns operate. We'll use Barry and Monken because we're talking Cleveland, but this is more big picture than just those two in particular. Should the head coach ever have final say on a draft pick over the GM?
I don't think so. Certainly not.
Boy, you're setting yourself up for a divisive front office.
That's just if you weren't going to give him final say, the Giants should have fired him when they hired Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I think it's a unique situation. I mean, Shane is on thin ice.
Yeah,
obviously.
And Harbaugh's, one of the best coaches in football.
And they were doing what
but
they
was
could.
he making picks here in Baltimore? I don't know.
Maybe he was promised that when he took the job.
I
Might have been.
I promise you, he had influence. Was he
Yeah.
having final say? I don't know.
I think the GM should pick the players and the coach. They should work together. In an ideal world, they
have to
work
work
together.
together, yes.
But ultimately, somebody has to have the final say.
Yeah.
And to me, the GM should have the final say on what players you pick,
Depends
and
on
the coach should have the final say on what players play.
Depends on who the coach is.
Yes, I can't
Yeah.
say it's straight that black and white. It depends on if the coach has got how much credibility is built. Does he won a Super Bowl? Is the GM any good?
Yeah, I hear you in general, but Bill Belichick, the coach, was great. Was he great as a GM? He had more say later in his career, and he did a terrible job drafting.
I know that if I were in the situation where
Yeah.
I was Harbaugh and I was allowed to have the final say, I wouldn't be making the picks without feeling like, man, everyone's behind me on this.
How much scouting are you doing? You're not
as
doing,
much as those guys.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't listen. I can't imagine that first-year head coach Todd Monken gets final say over Andrew Berry.
Nor should he.
No, of course he shouldn't.
I have no problem if he wants to give his blessing.
Of course he
has input.
If the GM didn't want the head coach's input, that would be a red flag.
Yes.
But the GM, in most cases, should ultimately make the pick.
I think it's certain. I'll go back to the story I wrote on Monken about when he was at Southern Miss, and he felt like he had an eye for quarterbacks, and you know what he wanted.
Right.
And he got, I think it was Nick Mullins, and so I know quarterback. They're not really looking at quarterbacks, but if you want to get Todd Monken in a room and ask him what do you think of these quarterbacks,
absolutely,
he should have influence there on linebackers and DBs and safety. Or I don't know how much are you really relying on.
Yeah, I mean even offensive linemen. I just the coach's job is to coach. The GM's job is to get players, is player acquisition. And I think organizations work best when they work that way. Again, you want to be together. And when I say together, it means working together, not necessarily agreeing on everything.
You don't want an echo chamber.
No, but you want to have a good working relationship. If the coach trusts the GM and the GM trusts the coach to do their jobs, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario is when the owner is making the decision. That's the worst.
Yeah, that guy doesn't even know how to watch tape.
No, he has no clue what he's doing. No, and so anyway, so I think we all assume Andrew Berry has final say on this pick. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, of course.
Yeah.
He's got the call.
Yeah.
What other head coaches do you think would have the power?
Andy Reid.
Yep.
Mike Tomlin maybe had some say there in Pittsburgh.
Well, he's not a current head coach though. So
Sean Payton.
Of the current ones, McVay. Do you think McVay over Snead?
Over.
I don't know.
It's probably in collaboration, but I'm just saying if
those guys are like homeboys.
I
man.
can't imagine there's many, if any, that truly have final say besides Reid and now Harbaugh.
What do you think? What do you think about Sean Payton?
I think Peyton might have final say.
I
mean, Bo Nix was his guy.
Yes, and that again, it depends on the position. I think the head coach should have quite a bit of influence.
Again, there's a big difference between influence and final say.
Yeah.
I just don't think the head coaches have final say. Again, maybe Peyton, maybe McVay, a couple, maybe Tomlin when he was with Pittsburgh. But I think that's the exception more than the rule, is my guess.
It's
I
funny.
guess maybe you should do a story on that.
Well,
Jason.
as we talk about this, I put this in the book that I wrote on LeBron, but the year that they had the number 1 pick and they took Anthony Bennett, the vote was like, I don't remember the exact number. I mean, Griff went on the record and told me this. It was 9-1, 8-1, whatever the number was. 8-1, 9-1 in favor of Anthony Bennett. The one guy who didn't want him, Chris Grant, the GM, who got fired for taking him. That's the one guy that didn't want to take him.
Who did he want? Another bad player?
He wanted Ben McLemore, who turned out to be better, but not good.
It ended up being somebody later in the draft.
Giannis.
Oh, Giannis. The Giannis draft. How did nobody see that coming?
I talked to
It was grainy footage. He was 153 pounds.
Well, why didn't people go see him in person?
Well, they did. The footage that we had was the greatest.
Oh, I see.
But I had people in the NBA tell me they wouldn't touch him before the second round, and he wound up being the best player in the draft. That's how.
By a lot. Was there anybody else in that draft that turned out to be good?
I mean,
McCollum, CJ McCollum, Oladipo.
Oladipo's okay for a few years.
Oladipo.
He was an All-NBA guy twice. Obviously, injuries.
That was like his only good years.
Injuries derailed his career.
As you have the conversation about final say, it's a collaborative effort of your entire staff.
Right.
Everybody gets it, and then when the GM has to make the final call, and had he, I mean, I don't know. I mean, McLemore wasn't a great pro by any means.
Better than Anthony Bennett.
Anthony Bennett's the worst number 1 pick in the history of the NBA draft.
Yeah.
He would be
I can't be. How can it be worse?
He's the worst pick. And he got fired for it. He never won him in the first place.
All right, 60-second trivia.
Let's do it.
It is the night of the NFL draft. So I went for an NFL draft-related question. Do you guys know what city hosted the first ever NFL draft in 1936?
I'm going to say Happy Valley.
No.
Pennsylvania.
It's a good guess, but no.
Chicago.
Incorrect.
Green Bay. I can't think of the name of the town that Rutgers is in.
It is not in Piscataway, New Jersey. It is not Piscataway. It's not Seattle either.
Green Bay?
Seattle. It's somewhere here.
36. Who would have said
Midwest to East Coast. Got to be. I'll say. You said what now?
I thought you said Seattle.
No, I didn't say. Was it Seattle?
No, it's
not
got to be
Seattle.
an East Coast city.
No, it's got to be an East Coast city.
Director Matt, do you have a guess?
I do not.
Director Matt does not have a guess. It is not Chicago.
I'm guessing it's not New York because that's where it was forever.
15 seconds. It is not New York.
Buffalo, New York.
No.
Poughkeepsie.
5, 4,
Canton,
3.
Ohio.
It is not Poughkeepsie. We do have a super chat of Poughkeepsie. The answer, though, is Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
Philadelphia hosted
I got
the first
Pennsylvania